Guys, we are back with the Conquerors crew and we are live. I have another super awesome guest this week. I cannot wait to get into it with Dr. Campbell. Dadgummit, guys. I have a friend named Matt Johnson, and I've done this so many times. I'm embarrassed already. I've warned Dr. Matt Campbell about this already, but hey, don't get sidetracked on that. We're here for the Conquerors crew, and we're here for Dr. Matt Campbell. But as I always do, I take a minute or two and I introduce and kind of lay the groundwork and set the environment for what the Conquerors crew is about, guys. And we have our three pillars. And the first one is hope. And for us, hope stands for helping other people excel. And so, hey, maybe you're having a rough week and you need a little hope. So you tune in and you kind of get a little something that you need. And hey, if you're having a good week and you got a little bit of a story or something to share, then hey, give a little bit of that hope out, because we know that if you need something and you can muster up enough and you give it out, that it comes back to you that much better. And the second pillar for us is grit. And for us, grit stands for grace, resiliency, integrity, and teachable. And so for us, grace, right? It's a lot easier, I think, to give grace to others than it is to have grace for yourself. So this one is just kind of a reminder, like, don't be so hard on yourself. Have a little grace for yourself, right? And resiliency, people, right? They think, oh, man, either you have it or you don't. I can never do what you did, beating cancer 3 times. You do and you can. And see, to me, is like anything else. You're not going to start out saying, oh, I'm going to run an Ironman today. You're going to build up to it. And to me, that's how resiliency is. It's little by little, step by step, and you build your resiliency like you would anything else. And integrity, well, to me, that's a little bit like grace. And what I mean by that is it's pretty easy to have integrity with others and say, hey, you're not quite following the rules. But at 3 a.m., when you've been up all night and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, are you being honest with yourself? I had to get real honest with myself the third time I had cancer, saying, Trent, brother, this one is going to get you if you don't make some changes. I mean, look at yourself. You're looking in the mirror. Well, it's not good, man. So have integrity with yourself and teachable. Always be teachable, right? Because we know that if you get a bit cocky and you get a bit high on your high horse, that's just about the time you get knocked off of it. So I think that we remain teachable and be teachable until we move on into the next step of life, right? And then the third one is well, hope, grit, and no quit. And I don't have anything for that one except for if you quit, you lose, and if you don't, you still win. And so that's it, man. Well, man, thanks, Dr. Matt, for letting me kind of do my spiel and introducing the Conquerors crew and laying the groundwork. I like to ease into this and don't go too hard too early. Man, how are you? How was your week? How things going? Tell us about it, sir.
Man, no, it's good. It's good. It's beautiful outside, and man, things are good. Just finished a day of work, which I love, and getting ready for some kids baseball this weekend and Easter and all that. So no, things are great.
Awesome, man. So you're married and you have a couple of kids, and would you kind of consider yourself like a typical family and doing that thing?
I am married, have four sons.
Wow.
Yeah, 21 to 14 years old. And, yeah. It's a busy life. It's getting a little less busy as I get older.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And now, what part of the country do you live in?
I live in Oxford, Mississippi, which is the home of University of Mississippi, or Ole Miss. So yeah, we lived here for the majority of my life now.
Okay. Yeah, it skipped out a little bit. And so now have you been with Oxford, Mississippi? Are you associated with the university or anything like that? Or is it just you happen to be in a university town?
Well, I went to graduate school here. I went my undergraduate's from Clemson University, and then I did graduate school here. So did a doctoral program here. Met my wife. We both loved the town, and so after we went elsewhere for some extra training. They call it a postdoc or internship and postdoc. We came back here and have settled in.
Cool. Now, if you don't mind, can I just ask you, like, a little bit about, who Dr. Matt Campbell was before today, right? Where did you grow up? And, did you have brothers and sisters? Just, kind of like the Southern, 20 questions, but not the 20 questions. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Give us a little bit about who Dr. Matt Campbell is.
No, I am from suburbs of Washington, D.C., Fairfax County, Virginia. And so I grew up there. Grew up in a military family. My dad was career Army. And I am the youngest of 5. I have an older brother and 3 older sisters.
Wow.
And big old family. And so, grew up there. And as I said, I kind of just kept on making my way south from Clemson and spent some time in North Carolina, and then now in Mississippi, spent a little time in Texas as well.
Cool, man. Awesome. My brother's Army. He's been Special Forces for forever, and I think he's over 20 years in the Army, and he's stationed in North Carolina. So that's interesting. And I've lived in Dallas, Texas from about 2000 2005. So and I'm originally from Louisiana. So Dallas was the big city that we would go to, if we wanted to do that, and Six Flags and Wet and Wild and the whole thing when I was younger. So,
Dallas is a pretty big city, yeah.
It's gotten to be humongous, man. I have some family, aunt and uncles and stuff that live in Austin now, and I lived overseas for about almost 20 years, and I've come back in 2021 for my health issues and stuff, which are all fine now. But I'll tell you what, man, from about McAlester, Oklahoma, down to heck, man, as far as I've been down to San Antonio, it is nothing but concrete and development, man. It's crazy, that and we, I've driven down a few times to have some conferences and things in the Austin area and stay with my aunt and uncle. And I cannot believe it's a concrete jungle, man. It's basically, developed all the way from, McKinney, Frisco, Texas, all the way down, man. I mean, heck, shoot, it's crazy, man. So, yeah.
As long as they didn't mess with the hill country. Now, that's
that seems like it's pretty still kind of there. That's a rough, that's rough terrain. I love it personally. I love it, but it is hot. It is dry. It is hilly. It is not for the faint at heart. And I do like the area. I had a project in Austin when I was working in IT back around 2003, 2004. So, I spent some time down there, and my cousin was still there, and we're only a year apart. We went to college together, and he graduated and moved back, and I had a project. So I hung around Austin for 4 or 5 months when I was working the IT thing. And it's a wonderful, different, unique area of the country, kind of like where I live now in Northwest Arkansas. So, but hey, it's not about me today. It's about you, man. And so tell us, one of the big things that you have done in your career is you've written a book. And so tell us a little bit about this book, man. This book, I haven't read it, honestly, I am so busy with all the things I've got going on with this and my cancer coaching and everything. So I haven't, but man, tell us about this book a little bit. It looks awesome.
No, thank you. Yeah. So, have been in private practice for clinical psychology, or technically a licensed psychologist here in Mississippi since 2003. And kind of the genesis, the origin of doing this was over the years, when my boys would, be gone to bed, and, kind of have some downtime. What I did, probably over about 2 years, 3 years maybe, I would just, just be thinking about, the work and things that, one of the main things is I've always just been so curious about us as people and things we deal with and things like that. And so I date it back to a professor I had in grad school, and he had us write our theory of personality, of kind of human behavior. And so for some reason, I've always kind of kept that at the back of my mind, and maybe as part of that, what I would do each night, maybe not every night, but a lot of the time, and I was write down things that I was seeing people deal with, and so many people, I just see it repetitively. And so I wrote it down over the years, and ends up I got about 5 pages of titles of these different things. But I got to a point about 2 years ago where I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to write something. And I looked over all of it, and I was trying to figure out, well, what would it be that I'd write? And I was trying to think of the thing that I could write about that would have the biggest impact, or not. It could have the most effect for people in their lives. And what I came to is this, and we call it Our Primal 5. That's the name of the workbook. And the idea is this, the concept behind it, and I've just experienced it personally and in practice, is that we have these bodies that we have had as humans for a long time, from a very long time. And so we think about our ancestors and the world they live in, and these bodies that we live in, and they're made for certain things. But then we also live in this current culture, in this current age that is so different. Our world is so different from our ancestors, but yet we still have the same bodies. And so basically what the book is about, it's about trying to help people get back to these basic primal, basically take care of these basic things that our bodies were made to do. And so those things are sunlight and sleep and moving and being meaningfully connected to other people, and then consumption. And we think of consumption obviously as the physical consumption we're putting in literally into our bodies. But these days you have to include, the consumption in our brains, the technology, all the different forms of media that we have access to. And so the idea is it's not perfection, not at all. That's not even possible. So what it's about is trying to improve these very, essential human things. And kind of getting back to it and try to structure this workbook in a way that is, not only giving the information about why these are so important, but really trying to help people with the challenge of changing our behavior. Because you know what, if it were as easy as just to say, hey, I'm going to do this, then we'd all be doing it. But changing our behavior it's a challenge. So we try to help within the workbook, ideas of how you can do things and ways that give us a better chance at being successful.
Right. So do you have a book that goes along with the workbook, or is it one in the same together?
It's one and the same. And so the reason behind that is, over my time of doing this work, one of the things that I've noticed and I've come to the conclusion of is that in terms of like this genre, this self-help genre, people either have 0 books that are kind of self-help and stuff like that, or they have more than 20. And so, what I noticed is that, we have a fair number of people who are really interested in bettering themselves and bettering their life and such. The problem is applying those things. Like, most any self-help book or anything like that's going to have some good ideas. The problem is I think a lot of times those ideas just stay interesting. They just stay interesting in terms of, oh, did you read this or see this or things like that. but the application of them isn't there. And that's the key. And so the idea behind a workbook is like literally doing the things, of being conscious of the things, of writing the things. So that's the idea. And actually, I'm in the beta testing stage of an app that is, tracks right alongside the Our Primal 5 workbook. And it's going to be an app that's going to, what it does is you record, these different areas, how you're doing on them. It gives you scores in terms of feedback for each area and for an overall, and tips on how to change our behaviors. We can see where we are with these different things over the weeks. And yeah, man, we're just trying to do everything I can with this to set it up so that we can get better.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the fact that the workbook that goes with it, and the idea is that this Google thing, right? This Google, it's like, and I even find myself, I get caught up in it. Like if it takes longer than 5 minutes for me to find it, or look, I'm done. I just like, well, it's too hard. It's in the too hard box. I just move on. It's kind of done that to us. We're in this instant society.
Yeah.
And, to do the things that you're talking about are just kind of back to the building blocks of the basics, right? And it's a hard work, and it's work, and it's consistency, and you kind of have to do it daily. And the thing I hear you saying is, it's easier said than done. And it's like, I just feel like I hear my mind tell me that about 100 times a day about things. And it's just, like you and I are probably close to the same age. I'm probably a bit younger than you. I mean, so I'm just
sure.
I'm just joking with you, man. I'm just
trying to true. So,
I'll ask you a little bit. Well, I'm going to be, I'm just thinking about it because, you know what? I'm going to be 50 this month, and I feel like an old fart, to be honest with you. So, but God, can't you just see? We're in this generation to where we grew up without cell phones, and where we had to wait for a phone call, and we'd make a phone call and say, "Hey, I'll be there at this time." And if you didn't show up, or you weren't there, or whatever, you had to wait, or you missed each other, or whatever. And we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have that every time we went and did something that every single thing in our lives would be documented, and we are 100% on camera, like your life is the Kardashians all the time. We didn't grow up with that, but we also have grown up with where we have the internet, and we adapt, and we can do most of the technology stuff, and we're kind of in tune with it, greater than say our parents or our grandparents, where they're it's a struggle for them. It's hard for them. And then like you look the other way with our kids and stuff, and it's like, I mean, it's like a second language to them. I mean, they grew up with it, and they can do. If I got a problem, I go ask one of my friends' kids to like, how did you do this or fix that or whatever. And I think it's an awesome generation that we're involved in, that we're kind of in that middle where we see that one and we experience that one, but we've got enough skill to where we can kind of play that. So I think it's awesome that you're going to do an app and try to like, hey, these are old school concepts, but we're going to put them in a technology easy kind of way. Because, good communicators, right? They get on the level of the person that they're trying to communicate with. They don't try to bring that person up or down to the level that they're trying to communicate, right? Or correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Matt, please.
No, I mean, one of the things you were just describing, I think is really cuts to the core of what we're talking about here, is that these things, taking care of these things that our bodies are made for. When you think about that today, certainly for kids, I mean, there are unique challenges that they have with this compared to our generation. But I think that one of the things that's really, really important is that it kind of comes along or goes along the lines of simple doesn't mean easy. And, these different things for us, it is so much more difficult to do these things than the generations that were before us. Because when you think about it, our ancestors a ways back, they had no choice, right? They were outside. They were going to be outside. There weren't these climate controlled environments. They had to move. They slept at night. There weren't any artificial lights. They had to be in a community because that's the only way you could survive. The lone wolf doesn't survive. And then the other thing, they didn't have the choice of these aisles that you could go down, with all these processed foods, or they didn't have these digital devices. So for them, they had no choice because, after all, that's why our bodies are the way they are, is for them to live within that world. We have to make choices to do these things because we have to be intentional because there are so many things out there. And as you were mentioning that, 5 minutes of focus, but that's the thing, is that there's so many easy buttons, so many immediate things that we can get. We're kind of wired for the short term, maximize pleasure, minimize pain. And so that's what we're kind of wired for. And so we have to be really intentional with these things, more so than any generation before us.
Yep. So you have five. It's the 5 primal. And of those, which ones do people start with? What's kind of the basis that you start with? And can you take us through a little bit of a journey of doing the workbook?
Sure. So the workbook begins with sunlight. And I think that sunlight is easily underappreciated as far as how big of an effect it has on us. I've joked or mentioned before, I have sisters. 2 of my sisters live in Oregon, and they will have no problem telling you how important sunlight is because, it's not like living down here in the South where, sunlight isn't a problem. We get plenty of it, but we are wired for sunlight, and the sunlight that is most helpful to us is the morning. Getting out in the morning, it does a lot for us. It sets our daily rhythm and cycle with the circadian rhythm. It sets it. Getting that morning sunlight, telling our body it's the beginning of the day. So we start with that one, because in a lot of ways we want to build momentum, and so it starts with getting out in the sun. And shoot, man, that can be as easy as, if you have a cup of coffee in the morning, sit outside with your cup of coffee, get that morning sunlight, stuff like that. And then we go into sleep. These 2 things are actually related. That morning sunlight I was telling you about, or just mentioning, that's one of the best sleep aids there is, because when we get that morning sunlight, like I said, it's setting that circadian rhythm for the day, and so it makes it easier to fall asleep at night.
Can I ask you with the sunlight thing? Is it like right when you, is it as strict as like right when you wake up that you want to get in the sun and get 5 or 10 minutes of sunlight, like in your eyes, kind of directly? I'm not talking about like sun gazing, but is it that kind of crucial to do it within, like, once you wake up, you better get in the sun and get that in your eyes in the first 5 minutes? Or is it kind of like, hey man, once you get up, you have your cup of coffee, go outside and have your cup of coffee in the morning and kind of do your ritual in the sunlight versus in front of the, sitting in the living room in the AC kind of thing, if you will?
It's the second that you mentioned. It definitely didn't jump out of bed and into the sun. No, not at all. It's just the key part is that morning, before 10 is getting out there and getting that sunlight. And so there's not that urgency.
I got you. And do you kind of have, like, say, like you really need to have, I'd say, 15, 30 minutes, we just say, like, you really ought to get about 30 minutes before 10 a.m. And that really is kind of the sweet spot kind of thing, Is there any guidance around that?
30 minutes a day is good. that's a good spot to shoot for.
Sure.
15, 30 minutes in the morning is great. A lot of times we use about 15 minutes or so as what we encourage. But no, 15, 30 minutes, that's good. And, as I mentioned, the workbook, we have to obviously, sunlight is fantastic. We also have to be careful, with the sun exposure and taking care of ourselves. And, when we go over a certain amount of time, and of course it depends on your complexion, just making sure we're taking care of our skin as well. But no, absolutely, 30 minutes or more is a really good thing. Again, just making sure we're not overdoing it with for our skin.
Right. Well, and I kind of got us off on the sunlight thing, and you were talking about the sunlight and sleep kind of work together. So, yeah,
they do work together. I actually like you asking the question, because I think a lot of times with sunlight, again, I just don't think people appreciate it enough, how much it affects our mood.
Yeah.
How just huge it is for so many things. And being able to get out there and get that sunlight and the vitamin D and this kind of a natural thing is so helpful for us. And we have research, and it's talking about in particular mood and all the benefits that sunlight has for us in that way.
Yeah.
So sleep is to me, it's the bedrock. Sleep. Sleep is associated with just darn near everything, it seems like. Very, very important in mood and handling feelings. But what I've found in folks that I work with is, essentially anything that we struggle with is going to be worse with sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
It's so fundamentally important. Our attention, irritability, all these things that good sleep can really help us with and really take care of it. And so, sleep is one of those things that we know a lot about how to help with sleep. And we have a lot of it in there to try to help figure this thing out. And so far as helping us with this part of our life, I think as important as sleep is, I think a lot of times we can kind of treat it like, I got a little bit more to do. Or obviously these days, one of the main things is maybe we're busy during the day and we're doing all this and we're enjoying looking at that phone and scrolling through and before long, I mean, I've done it. I know before is, I was looking at YouTube and it was rolling through these, songs and performances that I just love. And it's scary how good YouTube can nail you in terms of what you like. And before I knew it, it was way past when I wanted to go to bed. And it's easy for that to happen. And so we have these things that I think a lot of times we kind of treat sleep as I'll just catch up on it. And before we know, we're just stacking those days on top of one another.
Right. Yeah. Sleep, I read a bit about it, and I know I have a biology and chemistry degree, and I'm not going to claim that I'm on any level compared to, a doctor or a psychologist or anything. But when you sleep, your body has an opportunity to regenerate a lot of those hormones and those regulators, right? That you need. And it also is the time where you kind of have a bit of a mini fast, so to speak. And it's a good time for your body to where it goes into this state of kind of, and for me, it's kind of like it's related to a bit of the cancer thing where your body has that opportunity to say, okay, well, we're in a regenerative kind of state, and we're getting rid of the old cells or the bad cells or, so to speak, the ones we don't want to, and we're making the new ones. And if you're skipping out on sleep, you're not giving your body and your mind and your brain the opportunity to regenerate all those things that regulate you, and also the things that kind of tidy up the messiness, the messy stuff that you created during the day, which is just natural, what human beings do, right? And so, it's important, I think, to me, like, what's more important, food, water, or sleep, right? Well, most people are going to say, well, water, right? Because you can't go a couple days. And then a lot of people think food, but you can go 30 days without food, right? I mean, people do fast that are a month or, 90 or 120, whatever, under supervision, of course, right?
Yeah,
right.
it's a long time.
Right. Under supervision and it'd be a special case. But, I don't think people realize how important that sleep is. It's even more important than food if you're going to look at it kind of in a hierarchical kind of way. And I know there's exceptions and things like that. Would you have a tendency to kind of agree with that in a general concept, or correct me if I'm wrong, please?
Well, I think that these things are all, so important. I think that there's no doubt with sleep deprivation that there are huge effects. And like you said, I mean, I think you were obviously, being a bit humble there, that if you have a degree in biology, you have a whole lot of understanding. But, and as you said, and I like the way you put it, cleaning things up. I think that's a great way of putting it. It really, really does. And you talk to anybody, look at fitness people and things like that, and just for muscles and all these different things like working out, they really try to emphasize how important for your fitness that sleep is. And so it's it's not just, oh, I'm tired. I mean, the effects are just so widespread.
Yeah. And so to me, it's like I really, I fight. I fight, like strictly about my diet and my sleep, right? And if you
Right.
kind of have those two things working together, you can overcome a lot of things in life, or a lot of issues and things that can happen. Okay, so is that kind of 1 and 2? We got sunlight, we got sleep,
Yes.
and then take us through, Dr. Matt.
Yeah. And so, after those two, then we have, I have the fourth that jumped in my mind was the social connection.
Okay.
But in terms of in the workbook, what we have as number 3 is movement. One of the things I actually had someone who's in exercise science and these kind of things, and I actually had them look at the workbook, and one of the things that they suggested to me that's really helpful is that instead of just using the term exercise, they were explaining to me how in that field right now they really prefer using the term movement, which makes a ton of sense. A lot of times when people hear exercise, they can have these things that they associate with it, can actually maybe even keep them from it, because they think of it as joining one of these extreme fitness approaches and things like that. And that's not what I'm talking about at all.
Right.
And obviously, as long as our bodies will let us, those are great. I love it that people do it. My kids do it. I think that's fantastic. But what we need as humans, what we need is to move. We need to move our bodies. We need to, walking is a fantastic exercise. But these kind of things, even throughout the day, even if we don't have that 30 minutes or an hour to work out, even throughout our day, getting up, get out of those chairs, walk around, take the stairs, all these things we hear about, those things can be so helpful for us. It's just, just letting our bodies know everything's okay. Movement is a fantastic stress reliever. In fact, a lot of times, folks I work with anxiety, when that stress really starts hitting a high level, that's my main encouragement. Move. Get your body, get some energy release, do these things. It's so huge.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just, it reminds me of a story. I was on a project in Perth, Australia, with a guy that's a friend of mine, a few years older than me, and and we had we were hired to work with this mining and collecting of metals and minerals and things like that. When we were putting in an IT system, helping them put in a system, and we happened to be like on floor 15 and floor 17. It's just the way it worked out. And the guys would go and they would play, they say, well, we got to go upstairs for me. And they'd do 17. And then I would go to the stairs, and the guy that I was working with, that was my manager, it was just he and I were the ones that were hired on this particular project. He said, why are you taking the stairs? And I was like, because it's one of these things where I've chosen to get a 2 or 3 minute thing of exercise.
Sure.
Instead of standing there doing nothing. I'm trying to maximize my time. And I read a study, golly, I mean, probably back when I was in high school, in Men's Health, right? In the magazine Men's Health, I used to get that monthly. And it was a study that said people that do 2 flights of stairs a day live to 7 years longer. And I was like, if it's that easy, I want to live 7 more years. So if I'm 93, I want to get to 100. I've been doing my 2 flights of stairs for, and so that's what I always did. And you know what? He started taking the stairs with me.
Sure.
And you know what? After about a week, he said, you know what? In a weird way, I actually feel more energy doing that than it would, because you think that you're like, oh, that's going to make me tired doing that. Now, I wouldn't do 50 flights of stairs. That'd be kind of silly, right? Dressed up in your work gear and you're doing, that'd be kind of dumb. It just kind of doesn't fit the scene. But golly, man. And you know what? For that entire project, he and I would take the stairs for that. And so, that's kind of the thing that works for me. It's like, I live with my folks now because of the things that have happened with my health, and thank God I have a 2-story house, and I kind of have the upstairs, and it's kind of become like, the crow's nest kind of back pad for me. And I'm so thankful, but it's upstairs. And man, I have a leg that's shorter than the other. And I'm on a cane. I was on crutches for 5.5 years, and I fought bloody murder to get to this point. And people are like, why do you put yourself through that pain of going up and down those stairs? And I'm like, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have been able to rehab this leg and this hip and these things. And so to me, it's like making those little small decisions each day, right? To say, you know what? I'm going to park my car out here and put it in the shady spot behind the tree. And I'm going to walk that extra part through the parking lot, because then I got a chance to kind of double up on getting a little exercise and all that, if you will. Yeah. Sorry for the long explanation, but you know what I'm saying. You know where I'm at, and I feel like
I mean, man, that's inspiring. Just in terms of, it's, these things are challenging for all of us, but when you're dealing with what you're talking about and still making those decisions, that's inspiring. That's awesome. It really is. And, you made a point that reminded me of something my dad said. I remember my dad one time talking about this guy that worked, they worked together, and, this guy was juggling jobs. I think my memory is he had about 3 different jobs. And my dad was just like, man, how do you do that? And he goes, exercise, my dad, military guy, even my dad. And he's like, what are you talking about? Exercise, you're already doing all this. But as you said, once we get into that routine, it actually provides energy. I think sometimes people just start the routines and are real tired, and they don't get the benefit of that other side of it, where it actually will end up providing energy.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Do you have any other points you want to talk about with the movement, or shall we move on to number 4, sir?
Man, I could talk about every one of these for a while. I just,
I love it.
they're
I
because they
love it.
really
We
are.
can do we can do an hour on each one. And you know what? If you want when we're done with the show, we could talk about that, because I do a series with you, man, about this. I love this stuff. It is the basis of what I do as a cancer coach and a cancer journey coach and a patient advocate. It truly is. It truly is. So yeah.
Well, and it's it's just something where we talk about the exercise, we talk about all these things, and one of the things that I really emphasize, I mentioned it earlier here, but it's so important. We are looking for improvement. We are looking for improvement. I think so often what discourages people, is like, fitness. Listen, we don't need to be able to lift a car. We don't need to be extreme with everything. And we also don't need to be perfect. I think that it's just that perfect trap. I mean, first of all, it's impossible, so we're going to fail.
Oh man. Yeah.
But it's just about trying to help ourselves and improve. And and it's something that it's doable. It takes effort. Another thing it takes that I'm really big on is for these things, for us to change these things, and I think of it with the clients who I work with in therapy, is that we have a real chance at improving ourselves when we don't wait on feeling like it. And
so true.
Feeling like it is the trap. It's awesome when we feel like doing the healthy stuff. It is awesome. I love it. You love it. We all love it, because that makes it easier. And hey, go with it. That's great. But if you rely on that, you're never going to really make change. If it has to be something you feel like you're motivated, listen, a lot of times it's just put one foot in front of the other. That's what we have to do, because we're not going to feel like it. And the easiest example is a New Year's resolution. We've all done it. You're excited, usually going to be some health fitness type thing people do.
Yeah.
We're excited. But what happens after a week or two? I'm no longer excited about this change I'm going to make. And maybe I'm a little tired from work, and I'm like, I'll do it the next day. And then we let the next day, that's fine. We're going to miss a day. But then we never let the next day pile on the next day, and before we know it, it's gone, because we needed to. We wanted to feel like it, and when we decide that we're going to do something, even if we don't feel it, that's when we have a chance to really change.
Yeah, man, God, you're so right. Yeah, that's just so true, right? You know what kind of works for me and helps me do that is. I'll even block out a thing in my schedule and say, I'm not available. This is my workout time from 6:30 to 7:30 or whatever, and I put it in my calendar and I set a reminder, and that's that. And sometimes that doesn't work, and it's as easy as in the morning. I used to have a lot of issues with anxiety. And that whole deal, and I've been down all that. I've done all 3, 4, 5 times, whatever. Yeah. But what I learned is, I just give myself a countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just get up and quit thinking about it and just go do it. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just little steps. Just get myself to the bathroom. Right? And then it's just get my butt. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get your butt in the shower, right? And it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Brush your teeth. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Eat your breakfast. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get your butt out the door and get yourself in the car. And then once I'm doing that, I'm on the way there, and I'm not going to stop that, right?
I mean, 2 of the things that are going to help us the most with this, and you were mentioning one or both of them just right there, is structure. Having a structure and a routine, that this is just what I do. I walk my dogs every morning. That's just what I do. When my feet hit the floor, I'm not thinking, do I feel like doing this? It's just part of my routine. So it makes that a lot easier once it's a routine and a schedule. The other thing that you said is you make it short term. you set a short-term goal. What's the next thing I'm doing? It reminds me of this really cool video I saw from a Navy SEAL when he was talking about going through SEAL training and how brutally difficult that is. And his whole thing was, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? It's, I'm going to make it to breakfast, then I'm going to make it to lunch, then I'm going to, in the morning, make my bed. But everything was very short term. And so structure and short term really help with making good changes.
That's how it was with me with the cancer. The third cancer I had was pancreatic, and about 9 surgeons in 2 weeks were like, "You're not going to make this. You got a year," and that's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and I'm just so thankful to God that I kind of had that epiphany, and I'm like, I'm not worried about what's happening in a year. You know what I'm worried about? I'm worried about today. And one of my little slogans is, well, grit don't quit. That's one of them, right? And the other one is just win today. Just win today. I ain't got to worry. Yesterday. I can't change it. Tomorrow ain't even here. I'm wasting energy.
Yeah.
Worrying about today is the day. Today I'm the QB of this play right now. And what am I going to do? Am I going to pass it? Am I going to run it? Or what am I going to do? Because I'm the QB of this life, right? And so that's what man. I mean, it's all about like just this play right now. If I can get 3 yards on first down, well, I got second and third down and get a first, right? That's one of the things that I actually have in one of the books that I wrote was about, I compared my life to a football game. I had to take myself out of the situation because it was so stressful and so heavy. Like it was like, I literally was like having discussions about like life, death, or cut off my limb, my leg, it's like, it's just like, I couldn't do it. And so I just actually I disassociated to a degree. And I put myself in a football game, and I was like, well, you made a bad one on that when you got sacked. But hey, man, you got 3 downs left, and brother, you're deep in the opponent's territory, but you better make a couple of smart plays to get your butt out of this crack, right? And hey, you know what? I did. I'm almost 5 years cancer free now, man. I am one of those. I am one of those, and I did it by doing one and two things. I didn't quit. And I just tried to win today. And you know what? You don't win every day. You don't. It's impossible. It's impossible. You don't win every game, right? You can't put that on yourself. But it's like, hey, man, go talk to the coach. Let's figure out what we made a mistake on, and let's try to fix that for tomorrow and win tomorrow, right? And so, yeah. Man, hey, tell us about, I try not to take over these podcasts sometimes, but
no, that's not. Yeah, you have a great experience. I mean, great.
But gosh, man, I feel like it's going well, man, and we're such on the same level on so many things. I'm so thankful that you're on the show, and that you didn't use an excuse that you had to dig yourself out of a snowstorm again to not be on the show.
It was legit, man. We had 2 minutes of falling.
So you can't
I want to get to it though. Okay,
get to it, brother. Get to it.
I'm going to try to redirect from that.
Yours.
So the next thing, no, is like I said before, we're pack animals. We got to have each other. We got to have other humans who we're connected to in a healthy way. We got to have those kind of relationships where the relationship is the main thing. It's not what we can get from it. It's not, X, Y, and Z. That's it. That relationship, that human, it's the main thing is my connection with them. So
you're talking about having quality relationships with a few people that you trust and are loyal to and committed to, and not thousands, right? Those are acquaintances.
I mean, and people can be extroverted and love that contact. Hey, that's great. But we need our people. We need our tribe. We need those people who are all the things that you just mentioned, that there's genuine care, concern, that we are better for our time with them. We always have to watch out. It's not just about being around people. It's not just about spending time with folks, because a lot of times the easiest people to spend time around are not the best ones for you to be around. And so, that's that. And so just can't, put, that I can't do justice to it. But I did want to mention one thing. I want to make sure, Trent, that I hit this final one. Make sure I do that. And
I think we've got about 15 minutes. I think we've got like 15 minutes. So
okay.
Don't feel rushed.
Yeah,
man, you got it, brother. It's all you, man.
No. So I got, we have this. We have. When actually, I do want to take a step back and go to that social. Is that Trent, one of the things that is deceptive these days is technology, right? Because, you and I are on this video chat together, and we see each other, and we're, doing these things. It's not the same as being in the room with a person. Now, if we can't do it, maybe something's happening, any number of things, it's better than nothing, right? Texting, better than nothing for sure. Right. And so that's good. But just being in the presence of people we care about has such a huge effect. And so sometimes, it's called social media, as if, it could fill that social need that we have, which it doesn't. And I think that it's just, it's something, and it can be difficult. And listen, some folks this is a hard area, the figuring this part out is hard, and we need to, help out each other and help each other out. And we need to do things, and kind of kindness and looking out for one another. But it's worth the investment, and effort, to really make sure we have, our people, our tribe.
Right. Yeah. Well put, man. Well put. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. So, man, so the consumption part. So the consumption part, the reason I wanted to jump to it.
Yeah.
It's huge. It has become so huge. And so, it's so, I think most of the time when we hear consumption, we're going to think, what do you eat?
Yes.
That's
what I'm thinking.
Sure. Consume is physical.
Yes.
And certainly that's huge. It's certainly huge. The water, making sure we get that water, that we're hydrated, has huge impact on us. Another, and then the food, the food thing is something where it's really challenging for us with food and eating clean these days. The stuff that is the least expensive, and often the stuff that has that immediate good taste for us, is usually garbage, is usually terrible for our bodies. And, if you think about it, and this goes for a lot of things, it definitely goes for the technology side. Our ancestors, sugar has that really quick positive impact on us. Well, for our ancestors, wasn't a lot of sugar out there.
Right.
And so, it has this really reinforcing positive effect because it gave instant energy, not a lot of it out there, motivated us to find it. Now you go down the aisle of the grocery store, and about everything has some processed sugar in it. Right. It gives us from a money point of view, those folks, we are going to go for those things that give us that short-term boost. Yep. All of that processed stuff. And listen, I eat it sometimes, maybe more than I wish I did. We're going to mess up with this. It's easy. It's often less expensive, but just being conscious. The best advice I ever got in terms of food and shopping, shop around the perimeter of the grocery store, shop around that perimeter where you're going to find so much more of the clean food, the natural food. Try to stay away from those aisles as best you can, because that's where the processed stuff is much more likely to be. And so, the food part obviously has so many different effects, ton of health effects, definitely mood effects, and then when we talk about, obviously the consumption, alcohol is something that we have to be very, very careful with. And I use kind of the guideline that moderate alcohol consumption is considered 2 drinks for men, 1 for women. But I'll just tell you, 0 is the best. I mean that it's a poison. The less we consume of it, the better. That's certainly challenging in certain places. I live in Oxford, Mississippi. It's a college town. It's a drinking town. I get it. It's not easy. Alcohol is a lot of time part of the social fiber of places. But it's so important to be conscious of.
Sure. Well, what about other consumption? Do you mean consumption of things like social media, or consumption of time, your time with the relationships you were talking about? Or you mean consumption of what you're putting in your head as well, right?
That's the other part of it. That's the other part of it. And really, that when I'm saying that, you mentioned the things, right? It's what we're putting in our head. And so, just to start with the easiest one, because it's the one we hear about the most, is media, social media. It is, I mentioned the YouTube thing before. It is genuinely scary how well these things have us down, and how well they can manipulate us to use their product more and more and more. Like the movie, the social dilemma, explains we are not the consumers with social media. We are we are what's being consumed by them, right? Like they are consuming us, we're not consuming them. There's the way that they can, that these, algorithms have us nailed. I use YouTube as an example because one time, as a little experiment, what I did, I logged out of everything, right? And I got on YouTube as kind of a, just a new user, and wasn't, didn't know anything as far as me. And my experiment was, I looked up 4 songs that I like, 4 songs, 4 different artists. And then I looked at that right-hand column in terms of what it was recommending for me. And it was literally unbelievable. It was unbelievable because not only did they nail me, but they went in genres I didn't even look up, but songs I absolutely love from, I think I probably, knowing my taste, I probably put in a lot of like Americana, it was probably, folk and Springsteen, and these, these, probably Mellencamp and, things like that. But it was putting Marvin Gaye in there. I love Marvin Gaye. Like how in the world did that thing come up? Anyway, it's remarkable. But we have to really watch out for it. It can be very, very addictive for us. And you mentioned something about time. That's the other thing. When I'm speaking with a client, the things I want to know about their social media consumption are, number one, are you comparing yourself to a lot of people on there? Because that's right. The other one is how much time. Because it is a vacuum for time. So
how do you regulate that? Do you say, hey, you know what? Like for me, like I was watching too much news, and so I kind of agree with my counselor. I was like, hey, an hour a day, you're gonna learn anything else? You got it. You got it for the day. They actually just repeat the same thing with a new anchor. You're not missing anything, man. You got it, and that's it. But it's depressing you because you're watching it for 5 or 6, 7 hours a day.
I could not love that you said that anymore, man, because it's like, the social media, we know that. If you need to look it up, there's a book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And he goes over it, man, and rates of anxiety and depression and suicidal behavior and suicidality is what we call it, have doubled with social media, particularly for teenagers, stuff like that. So we know that. But when you mention the news, I love that you mentioned that. I don't think people appreciate enough. We are not made for our access to news. We're not made for it. Like our ancestors, again, what did they know about? They knew about their village, maybe the villages surrounding them. We know what's going on the other side of earth, and there's so much news, and the reality, again, from them trying to get us to log in and tune in, they're going to give us the extreme things.
Yep.
And so it can suck our time, and also it makes us think things are worse than they are.
Right.
It makes us think this world, like when I mention to people that we live in the safest time in human history, a lot of times people will do a double take, probably think I'm an idiot. We do, but we watch the news and it makes us think that this world is so much more dangerous than it is. Is there danger?
Right.
Absolutely. But is it anything close to the impression we would get from our news? Absolutely not. So I like what you said. I like what you mentioned that y'all had worked on. What I recommend to people is 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the late afternoon. We're going to get everything we need to know. It is important to be informed. But anything beyond that, we're not adding anything, and we're certainly hurting.
What do you kind of have a general guideline that you say about like how much social media, with the exception of the news outside of that, how much social media do you say, well, give us, we want some, but we don't want to go overboard, right? What do you is your guideline on that, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So I mentioned Jonathan Haidt. His recommendations are based on, research data. His recommendations are and he more broadly describes it as screen time, right? So like not school or work related screen time. And so his recommendations are for those under 18, 2 hours. His research found that once we go over 2 hours, that's when the problems start happening. For adults, it's 4 hours. And so 4 total hours daily of screen time. After that, we start seeing more of the problems. And that seems like so much, but Trent, man, when I look at my phone screen time, it's embarrassing sometimes.
Do you mean like screen time as in also the time that you're spending looking at the screen for work?
No, not work. Like, so if someone's at school, if they're at work, that's not included. Okay.
Because I spend the majority of my time looking at spreadsheets and files and emails and stuff like that. So
this would be recreational.
Okay. Right. Okay. Cool. Good distinction for me to.
Oh yeah. Cool. Yeah. Most of us would be over our amount, just before we left the office. So.
Yeah, before noon, man. Right.
Yeah. The other thing that when we talk about consumption that I want to mention is pornography. And, it's one of those things that I've been on and talked to other people. And, I think I make people uncomfortable sometimes because it's kind of this like, ooh la la, like this.
It's a bit taboo to talk about it.
We don't talk about it enough. And when I was doing, the research for the workbook, these websites, it's not even close how popular they are to other websites. I mean, it like I said, it's by a factor of several, like so much more, pornography is so much more. And listen, we're humans, the dopamine, these drives that we have, and having such quick and rapid access to all these sexual images and so on and so forth. My stance is not a stance of morality. I'm a clinician. I am focused on what effect does this have on humans? And, it's just like, it's just like, we look at alcohol, we look at many other things. And I'm not saying that people can never, should never do X. Should is not a word I really love to use at all. But so it's not saying, oh, this is evil, terrible, no one should ever do it. Some people can handle it just fine. They do things in moderation and stuff like that. But the problem is with the more that pornography is used and things like that, it has a huge effect. It has a huge effect on mood. It can, and depending on the person and their value system and things like that, it can have an even bigger effect. It affects our perception of what sex is. And I'm telling you, man, it affects it can be like a drug.
Right.
It can
Yep.
be like a drug. It
Yep.
has all the earmarks when people use it excessively of tolerance, of needing more or more extreme things, of only
Right.
being able to, get to the sexual activity state, arousal with, more and more. And
Right.
we got to watch out.
Is it, like, I would think that young men, 15 to say 35 have
Mm-hmm.
a bigger problem than women. Am I wrong? Is that true? Is that, I haven't read any studies. I'm kind of asking, and I'm saying, hey, correct me if I'm wrong and tell us, do women have as big a problem as men? I wouldn't think so, but I think that there are females that do, they like to watch porn like guys do, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. The research shows. I mean, women are on these too.
Right.
Men certainly more frequently,
More
undoubtedly,
frequently,
men
sure.
more frequently, and it's when we're getting to those problematic levels, when it's happening, more hours of the day, more days of the week, these kind of things. I mean, that's really what we're watching out for. But definitely
Sure.
males with the problematic use is much more
Yeah.
frequent. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Hey, I appreciate you bringing that up and just making a point about it, right? And it's like, hey, like if you do and you watch it and you check, just check yourself, right? And that goes back to my thing with grit and about integrity, right? The eye for integrity. Just have a bit of integrity with yourself. And if you don't feel like you are, well, then go talk to somebody like Dr. Matt that's super cool about it, right? And you guys can work on it if you feel like you need to. If you don't, well, dude, rock out, do your thing. Well, hey, we're kind of coming down to it. And I always like to give the guests, is there anything we missed? Anything you want to talk about? Any points? All good. I'm not in a rush. Definitely tell us about your website. Tell us about your book. Tell us the links. Tell us how people can touch you. All the good meaty stuff.
Yeah, no. First of all, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And I have a website, ourprimal5.com, the number 5, and it has a link to the Amazon, to the book on Amazon. It has a newsletter that people can subscribe to, giving information on these things, and some of the background. And we're updating that website, but it's up there now. It gives plenty of information. And so yeah, I'd encourage people to look at it and give it a thought about going down this path of helping ourselves. And my things in terms of what to lead with, I mean, some of it was similar to your intro, is that and those things are being a human. It's not easy. We need to really prioritize our health. As with your grit, it is trying to do the things, regardless of how we feel, that are going to help us and that are in our best interest. And then finally, we all require grace, because we are flawed. We are going to mess up. Part of change is messing up. If you're not messing up, or if you treat messing up like, oh, I'm done, that didn't work, then we're in trouble. You are going to mess up. You are going to plateau. And that actually strengthens change when you keep after it. Because those kind of things are inevitable. They're learning experiences, and keep on moving.
Yeah, that's awesome. So guys, just to clarify, the website is the number 5.
Yeah.
Primal, primal.com. The number 5 primal.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke. It's our OURPRIMAL 5, the number 5. So it's ourprimal5.com.
Gotcha. Our Primal, the number 5.com is the website.
Yes.
And do you would you like, if people would like to contact you directly, do you have Can they do it through the website, or do you have a email address? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's just if you'd like to share that, please do. And if not, no pressure.
No, not at all. So you can send me a message through Instagram. Our Primal 5 also is that site, and then also emailing directly. It's matt@ourprimal5.com. So that's the email, and would love to hear from people.
Cool, man. Cool. So guys, everything is our, as in like possessing, like OUR, primal, the number 5.com. Okay. Just to be clear, that's right. Is that right, Dr. Matt?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well, hey man, if that's all from you, let me take us out. And if you don't mind, stick around for a minute afterwards and I'll have a chat with you.
Sounds great.
Awesome, man. Hey, thank you guys again for tuning in, and hey, God bless, Godspeed, and never forget that grit don't quit. We are out.